Restored Republic via a GCR. The global financial system, as you know it, is crumbling. For decades, the masses have been trapped in a rigged game bound by fiat debt, economic manipulation, and wealth hidden behind closed doors. But behind the scenes, the greatest wealth transfer in human history is already underway. I am Judy Byington. For years, through Restored Republic via AGCR, I have tracked the intel, followed the funds, and exposed the truth the mainstream media is terrified to report. Now, the final pieces of the global currency reset are falling into place. Welcome to my official YouTube channel, your unredacted command center for the financial revolution. Why you must subscribe right now. Real-time GCR and Tier 4B intel. Critical updates on revaluation timelines, redemption centers, and step-by-step guidance on how to navigate the reset. NESARA/GCR Unlocked. Deep dives into debt jubilee, the return to gold-backed assets, and how the new quantum financial system impacts your personal wealth. The uncensored financial truth. Direct breakdowns of central bank collapses, elite power plays, and the shadow ops driving today's global economy. The illusion is shattering, the old system is burning down, and those who remain unprepared risk losing everything. Knowledge isn't just power anymore, it is survival. Do not be caught in the dark when the switch is flipped. Hit subscribe and turn on all notifications immediately. The truth will set you financially free. Stand ready. Restored Republic via AGCR. Every major news channel and financial blog right now is celebrating the total victory of the cashless society, presenting tap-to-pay systems, biometric authentication, and instant mobile transfers as the ultimate triumph of human convenience. I want you to step back and ask yourself a fundamental question. What if the primary objective behind eliminating physical cash is not to save you 10 seconds at the grocery checkout, but to seamlessly integrate your personal liquid wealth into a centralized digital identity matrix? What if, while you are enjoying the frictionless ease of paying for your morning coffee with a wristband or a facial scan, the invisible infrastructure of financial permissioning is being permanently wired around every single transaction you will ever execute? Today, I am going to walk you through the structural reality of this transition, because on this channel, we do not do superficial panic and we do not do naive enthusiasm. We analyze the architecture of power, we examine the technical frameworks, and we follow the underlying systemic incentives until the full picture emerges with total clarity. I will demonstrate 3 critical developments. First, that the rapid rollout of zero-fee instant payment networks and mandatory biometric identification for high-value banking is not an organic consumer trend, but a deliberate policy campaign to eradicate unmonitored monetary velocity. Second, that digital identity systems represent the essential prerequisite for granular financial permissioning, transforming your money from an unconditional bearer asset into a conditional privilege. And third, that the global retreat of cash is triggering an unprecedented structural vulnerability, leading even the most digitally advanced nations to issue urgent warnings about the necessity of physical currency reserves. Let us start with the concrete technical facts unfolding across major economies right now. Across the globe, central banks and private banking consortia have systematically deployed real-time, zero-friction digital payment rails. From national instant transfer systems in emerging markets to modernized interbank clearing networks in developed economies, the cost of moving money digitally has been driven down to virtually zero for the average consumer. Simultaneously, regulatory authorities have introduced increasingly stringent compliance mandates requiring banks to capture real-time biometric verification, facial recognition data, and persistent device tracking for transactions exceeding arbitrary thresholds. Most financial commentators frame these measures as harmless consumer upgrades designed to fight payment fraud and streamline commercial activity. That explanation is dangerously superficial. The true purpose of driving transaction costs to zero is to construct a powerful economic magnet that pulls every microtransaction out of the unmonitored physical economy and into the observable digital realm. Once a population becomes entirely reliant on digital rails, the physical infrastructure of paper currency, such as local bank branches, independent cash transit networks, and automated teller machines, becomes commercially unviable and is systematically dismantled. To understand the deeper implications of this transition, you must grasp the mechanics of how digital identity interacts with programmable financial ledger networks. In a traditional cash transaction, value is exchanged directly between two human beings without the necessity of an intermediary or a digital profile. The paper note carries its own validity. It does not care who you are, what your credit score is, what your political affiliations might be, or whether your digital identity file has been updated. A digital transaction, however, cannot function in a vacuum. It inherently requires a persistent digital identifier linked to a verified human entity. When you tap a card, scan a code, or present your face to a camera, you are not merely transferring value. You are transmitting an authenticated packet of metadata that combines your personal identity, your precise physical location, your device telemetry, and your full transaction history into a central database. This linkage forms the foundation of what can be termed the permissioned monetary framework. In this framework, the algorithm processing the payment does not simply check whether you have sufficient funds in your ledger balance. It simultaneously evaluates whether your digital identity profile satisfies the operational conditions established by the system administrators. If your identity file contains a flag, an unverified field, or a temporary compliance restriction, the transaction can be instantly denied, delayed, or subjected to automated penalties before the merchant even receives a signal. Now, let us examine the Steelman argument presented by the architects of the cashless digital identity ecosystem. Proponents argue with considerable force that a fully digital, identity-linked financial system drastically reduces tax evasion, eliminates the money laundering capabilities of organized crime networks, and provides unprecedented efficiency for government distribution programs. They point out that physical cash is expensive to print, secure, transport, and sanitize, while digital networks allow instant distribution of emergency relief funds directly to citizens' digital wallets during crises. Furthermore, advocates emphasize that biometric digital identity prevents identity theft, streamlines border controls, and grants billions of unbanked individuals access to the formal financial sector through basic smartphone interfaces. This efficiency defense is undeniably compelling on a functional level. Digital identity networks do indeed reduce operational friction and enhance regulatory tracking capabilities. However, the Steelman argument completely ignores the irreversible transfer of personal sovereignty that occurs when physical exit options are destroyed. While a digital payment network functions with high efficiency during times of social and political stability, the underlying architecture permanently eliminates the concept of private, autonomous economic activity. Once physical cash is removed from circulation, an individual possesses zero capacity to conduct an economic transaction without the explicit real-time permission of a third-party intermediary. If the centralized network experiences a power blackout, a cyber attack, a software bug, or a sudden change in administrative policy, an entire population can find itself instantly locked out of the basic necessities of life, unable to buy food, medical supplies, or shelter. This is not a hypothetical risk. It is a structural reality that is already forcing a dramatic reassessment in the world's most digitized societies. Consider the profound reversal taking place in Scandinavian economies that led the global charge toward a totally cashless society over the past decade. For years, these nations celebrated the near-total elimination of physical banknotes, proudly boasting that even street vendors and public transport systems no longer accepted paper currency. Yet, as geopolitical tensions flared and vulnerability to hybrid cyber warfare became painfully obvious, national defense ministries and central monetary authorities were forced to execute a dramatic policy U-turn. Official government agencies began distributing emergency preparedness guides to millions of households, explicitly instructing every family to store a substantial emergency supply of physical banknotes in their homes. Central bank governors publicly stated that cash is not an obsolete relic of the past, but an indispensable civil defense infrastructure that guarantees national resilience when digital networks fail or are intentionally disrupted by foreign adversaries. Simultaneously, legislative bodies in these jurisdictions have rushed to enact statutory protections requiring commercial banks and essential retail businesses to accept physical cash by law. The very nations that pioneered the cashless experiment have provided the world with an undeniable, real-world case study. A financial system reliant exclusively on digital identity and electronic networks is profoundly fragile, highly vulnerable to systemic collapse, and inherently dangerous to public security. Looking ahead over the next 24 to 36 months, the convergence between digital identity systems and financial transaction networks will accelerate under the banner of security and fraud prevention. Regulatory frameworks will continue to expand mandatory biometric verification for routine financial operations, while central banks continue to refine their sovereign digital currency protocols. The narrative presented to the public will emphasize convenience, speed, advanced security, and protection against financial crime. However, the structural reality beneath the surface will be the finalization of an all-encompassing digital perimeter where every economic exchange generates a permanent record attached to your sovereign identity file. The gradual elimination of cash is not an accident of technological progress. It is the deliberate removal of the ultimate safety valve of individual economic freedom. Understanding this trajectory is essential for anyone seeking to protect their financial independence in an era of total digital integration. When you observe the systematic closure of physical bank branches, the aggressive push for biometric payment terminals, and the tightening legal mandates around cash usage, you are not watching a series of disconnected market trends. You are witnessing the steady construction of a permissioned financial network. A system where the ability to spend your own earned wealth is no longer an absolute right, but a conditional authorization subject to the continuous approval of a digital ledger.